former assistant to President Reagan. I was on the Reagan campaign staff before he ever was nominated for the party. I was one of 5 paid staffers that joined his campaign. I've served as a special assistant to 3 U.S. Attorney Generals in the Republican Party. I've worked at all levels of Republican politics here in the state of Arizona as well. Vice chairman of the county party at one time. And I served through the entire Reagan administration and traveled all over the world representing the White House. The Republican Party believes in individual liberty. The Republican Party has been championing for individual freedom and personal responsibilities for years. Limited government, rules, regulations, and intervention in business and individual lives as the people know better than government. In other words, the party has pushed to not have government intervention in individuals' lives or business. The party has pushed for health care for individuals to be able to pick out what they needed, what they wanted within the healthcare industry. The party has advocated for personal choice. How can a Republican not support a petition supporting women's reproductive rights, as they are in line with many core Republican values: individual liberty, limited government, economic freedom, personal health care decisions? Let we, the people, make our decisions on who we vote for. I cannot stand here and be a Republican and not say I support this without being a hypocrite. It's very important for Republicans to come out and for the people to say what they believe in and what they think. I would like to introduce Rana Lascari.
Good morning. I want to start by thanking Governor Hobbs for her leadership in defending not just women's rights, but human rights in Arizona. This month, the Arizona Supreme Court will hear arguments on an antiquated law from 1864 that could effectively ban abortion access in our state. And while I hold the highest regard for our court, the fate of sweeping policies that override anyone's right to make deeply personal and significant health decisions should not rest in the hands of 7 lawyers. Neither the courts, nor the government, nor politicians should dictate these deeply personal choices, ignoring individual circumstances and sometimes medical needs. For these reasons, I am supporting the Arizona Abortion Access Act. Arizona should not be a place where women do not have full and complete autonomy over their bodies. Arizona should not be a place where the most private, emotional, personal, and complex healthcare decisions women and families will ever face are bartered for by politicians. Arizona should not be a place where doctors fear imprisonment for providing medically accepted and sometimes necessary treatments of any kind. Morgan should not be faced to leave Arizona to save the life of her unborn child. And those who cannot afford to leave should not be forced to accept worse fates. As an Arizonan and an independent voter, I want policies that protect our rights, our bodily autonomy, and our health, regardless of which political party is in power. This ballot measure will be decided by the people of Arizona and will ensure that our state remains a place where individual rights are protected and where private healthcare decisions are made by the individuals and their medical providers and not imposed by the state. As a former prosecutor, I have seen too often the impacts of well-meaning but short-sighted policy. We must protect a woman's life and health beyond just ideology. And just as we advocate for life-saving treatments or preventative care, abortion should be viewed through the same lens of essential medical care. Because restricting abortions won't stop them. It only drives women and families towards unsafe and dangerous alternatives. And the reality is, when we limit anyone's autonomy over their body, we are threatening the individual liberty of every Arizonan. Some people will say this act goes too far, and some people will say it doesn't do enough. But anytime we have the chance to put power over this important issue into the hands of the Arizona voters, not the politicians, we should seize that opportunity, and we should always, always, always err on the side of protecting women and liberty and equality. So please join me, not as independents, Democrats, or Republicans, but as Arizonans, to stand in the support of the Arizona Abortion Access Act. Thank you. And before I leave, I'd like to introduce our next speaker, Joanna Mendoza. Joanna, thank you for your service.
Thank you so much. Good morning. Good morning, Governor Hobbs, esteemed guests, fellow Arizonans, and press. I stand before you as a proud Arizonan, a retired Marine, a mother, and a board member of Vets Forward, and as a testament to the unyielding spirit of every woman who calls Arizona home. The 2022 abortion ban was a call that awakened a sleeping giant. It was a stark reminder of the battle still to be fought. But today, we rise together, led by the tireless efforts of those who believe in the fundamental right of freedom for every American. As a woman who has worn the cloth of our great nation, who has stood on the front lines to defend those freedoms, I know the weight of what it means to fight for what you believe in. The aches and pains of several tours to Iraq and Afghanistan and 20 years of military service remind me every day. Our fight for reproductive liberty upholds the values upon which our nation was founded. It is a stand against the shadows of oppression and for who we represent as Americans. The journey ahead is not a battle of signatures and ballots. It's a rallying cry for every Arizonan who believes in the fundamental rights of women. It is a call to stand together, undivided by party lines, united in our belief that the freedom to choose is the very cornerstone of our democracy. We draw inspiration from the victories in Ohio and the waves of change sweeping across our nation. These victories were not mere political points, they're chapters in the larger story of our time, narratives of empowerment and equality. They prove that when we stand together and lift our voices in unison, we can turn the tide of history. Today, we send a message that says our state respects its women, values their contributions, and recognizes their sacrifices. A state that understands that the freedom of its women is the measure of its greatness. I hope you will leave here today with a renewed sense of purpose and channel your passion into action that will lead to meaningful change. Change that will allow every woman in Arizona to say with pride and conviction, I have a choice. Thank you. And now I'd like to welcome Morgan Finkelstein to share her personal story. Morgan.
Thank you, Joanna, and to the rest of the veterans for their service. It's an honor to be with Governor Hobbs today, and Republicans and independents, I appreciate you putting politics aside today in support of restoring our freedom to make our own healthcare decisions. I was recently part of the brief that Governor Hobbs filed in the Supreme Court case Planned Parenthood Arizona versus Mays. I was part of that brief, and I'm here today in support of the ballot initiative because I caught a glimpse firsthand of what happens when abortion is inaccessible and you need one. We simply can't let that happen in our state, Arizona, that we all love and call home. My husband and I were surprised to learn that we were pregnant just 3 weeks after our wedding, and shocked when we discovered that it was twins. We couldn't contain ourselves and immediately told everyone. We were even picking out names and looking at wallpaper for their nursery. They were already so loved. For that first anatomy scan, our friends placed bets on their genders. We learned that our twins were a girl and a boy. We also learned that our twin B, our boy, had a critical heart defect that was causing blood to pump into his lungs. Our joy turned into despair. They scheduled a follow-up, and we went home, nervous wrecks, but trying to remain positive. Our doctor explained that this was very serious, that I might not be able to carry this pregnancy to term, that it was high risk for the healthy twin and for me. She explained the process of a selective reduction, a specialized procedure that would stop the heart of twin B and allow me to continue to carry twin A to term. The doctor was working to arrange this at the one facility in Arizona that she knew to provide it. This procedure was technically legal at the time. But reproductive health care is generally scarce in a state like Arizona, where a doctor's freedom to safely provide or even recommend abortion care is constantly under threat. That facility could not help us, and the clock was ticking. Our doctor let us know that she was calling physicians she knew all over the country, and that we may need to travel to New York or DC. We were relieved when she finally let us know that she found a doctor in LA who could help us. So in March of 2020, as the world was shutting down, I was 20 weeks along in my twin pregnancy when we were able to get the care we needed in LA. The selective reduction procedure took place safely in an operating room in a hospital because it is healthcare. It was $9,000 up front and out of pocket because it is healthcare. We went home where I carried our healthy baby and our dead baby for the remaining harrowing 4 months of my pregnancy before going into labor and delivering both of them. It was an otherwise safe, normal vaginal delivery. My experience was traumatic, but could have been so much worse had I not been able to access the care I needed. I'm grateful every day that I was able to, but I should not have had to leave the state for that care. Many Arizonans might not be able to say the same, and nobody should have to. Thank you. And I'm honored to introduce our governor, Katie Hobbs.
Good morning, everyone. Thanks for being here. Let me start by thanking everyone who's standing here today to bring attention to this incredibly important ballot measure. As you can see by the diverse group of people here, reproductive freedom is not a partisan issue. It's about our individual rights, it's about our healthcare, and it's about women's ability to wholly participate and thrive in our society and our economy. I want to thank Frank Thorwald and Rana Lashkari, a Republican and an independent, for sharing their reasons for supporting this ballot measure. They represent millions of Arizonans, including myself, who don't think politicians of any party should dictate reproductive health care decisions for women. And I want to thank Joanna Mendoza, first for your service to our country in the Marines. And thank you for taking the time to come here today all the way from Pinal County. I know it's not easy to take a day off to do this, but that speaks volumes to how critical this ballot measure is to secure Arizonans' rights. So thank you for continuing to fight for our freedoms here at home. And finally, thank you, Morgan Finkelstein, for lending your story to the amicus brief I filed with the Arizona Supreme Court last month, and for sharing it here today. Your story never gets easier to hear, and I'm consistently awed by your strength. Arizonans need to understand exactly what's at stake when pregnant women can't get the health care they need. So thank you for your willingness to talk about your path to motherhood. It's fitting that we're standing here today in front of the Arizona Pioneer Women Memorial. This is actually the only memorial in Wesley Bolin Plaza honoring women. It commemorates the first women settlers in Arizona and is dedicated to the strong women who made the long, hard journey to settle in our desert. The plaque on the memorial reads, "In 1876, a group of pioneer women and their families came from the north, ferried their covered wagons across the Colorado River. With indomitable bravery and strength, they helped make the desert blossom into a green oasis. These strong, brave women led us to statehood in 1912, to women's suffrage just a few months later, and to the Arizona we know and love today. Which is why so many of us were stunned last year when one of our most fundamental freedoms was ripped away from us with the devastating Dobbs decision. Without the protections we had for 50 years under Roe v. Wade, our ability to access abortion care, miscarriage care, pregnancy care, and even contraception is under threat. In Arizona, we are just one bad court decision away from an 1864 abortion ban that carries prison time for doctors and provides no exceptions for rape or incest. And that bad court decision could come any day now. In just weeks, Arizona's Supreme Court will hear a case to decide if the territorial era abortion ban is going to be the law of the land in our state once again. I filed an amicus brief last month arguing that access to abortion is critical to the health, safety, and well-being of Arizonans, and I urge the court not to reinstate the 1864 ban. As governor, I will continue defending Arizonans' freedoms and fighting back against extremists who want to take those freedoms away. That's why I vetoed every bill that came to my desk that attacked reproductive rights, and I'll continue to do that every single time, just like I promised. Instead of sending me these out-of-touch bills, I've called on the legislature to immediately pass the Arizona Right to Contraception Act when they return in January, because every Arizonan should know they can access birth control. This is not controversial and it's not partisan, so send this bill to my desk and I will sign it. In the meantime, I'll continue to do everything in my power to expand reproductive freedom in Arizona, and that's why I issued an executive order to protect women who seek abortions and doctors who care for their patients from prosecution. Because our law enforcement officers and prosecutors have serious crimes they should be focusing on, not criminalizing personal healthcare decisions. Next November, Arizonans will have the opportunity to restore the freedom that was stripped away from women last year with the Dobbs decision. We need to collect about 385,000 valid signatures from Arizonans, which will allow us to put a constitutional amendment on the November 2024 ballot that enshrines the right to abortion in our state's constitution. I'm proud to support this effort, and I know that the vast majority of Arizonans will too. Because this isn't about your political party, it's about your personal freedoms. Standing here today, we have a coalition of folks that you might not expect to see together. Republicans, independents, and Democrats. But we all agree that the decision to have an abortion should be left to a woman and her doctor, not the government and politicians. We each have our own reason for signing this petition and supporting this ballot measure. Last year on the campaign, I talked about my path to motherhood. Like so many women, I suffered miscarriages, and I required a surgical procedure called a DNC to protect my health. That life-saving treatment was the same procedure that's commonly used for abortions, and it's exactly the kind of healthcare that's at risk with these draconian abortion bans. From personal experience, I can say that losing a pregnancy is already hard enough. I can't imagine what that situation would have been like had I been told that the best medical decision for my health also would be one that would be considered criminal and could land my doctor in prison. But now, without the protections of Roe, that is our reality. And that's my daughter's reality. My daughter Hannah is here with me today. She is 21 years old. And more than a year after Dobbs, I am still outraged that in 2023, my daughter has fewer rights than I did at her age some 30 years ago. And I'm going to do everything in my power to change that. So today, I'm signing this petition for my daughter and for the countless Arizonans across the state who believe in our fundamental freedoms and believe that we should be able to make our own healthcare decisions without the government or politicians dictating when or whether we choose to start a family. Thank you all for being here today. Now let's go get this constitutional amendment on the ballot.
Okay, are you all set? You're all good? Okay.
Who's notarizing?